Well, a very warm welcome to you guys. Hello, it's Cassim, and welcome to another episode of Notes on the Topic of. And today, I want to talk to you on and share some notes with you on the topic of the power of an underdog. So, as usual, I want to start off by thanking you very much for watching. I want to share and pass on my greatest gratitude to you for listening to me, for spending the next 45 minutes to an hour with me as I share with you some ideas, some philosophies, some thoughts with you that perhaps might be able to point you in the right direction, that perhaps might be able to bring a level of clarity, a level of insight into your life, thus allowing you to become your highest, fullest expression of who you're capable of becoming. And so I truly do want to thank you, and I hope that as I spend this time with you, I can pour as much of myself into you so that I can give you and equip you with something that can help you elevate your life to wherever it is that you want it to be. I would also, as usual, guys, ask you that if you want to join our community and you want more of these kinds of philosophies and thoughts from me, that you jump on our YouTube channel, Cassimotive, and subscribe. That's where we put most of our content. But I want to go straight into it because there's a lot of things that I want to share with you today. And as I said earlier on, I want to talk to you and share with you notes on this subject of the power of an underdog. Now, I want to preference today and say to you and give you kind of a warning, because some of the things that I'm going to share with you today are going to directly conflict against some of the ideologies and the philosophies which you hold. So I need to pre-warn you about that, because I would encourage you that as you listen to me today and as you listen to me share some of the things that I'm going to share with you, come to it with an open mind. Come to it with a mind of like a student. Come to it with a mind that is open to everything and is attached to nothing, but also the kind of mindset which says, hold on a minute, Cassim, I kind of agree with some of the things that you're saying, but I kind of don't agree with some of the things that you're saying. In other words, what I'm sharing with you is, as I'm going to talk about some of the things that I'm going to talk about today, if there's things that are useful to you, take them, use them and model them and apply them into your life. If there are things that are not useful to you, disregard them and throw them away. But I just want to pre-warn you that some of the things that I'm going to talk about today will conflict against the ideologies that you've probably built most of your life on. And the reason why I say that is because I know that what I'm going to talk about today isn't really for the average Joe Blog. The subject that I'm going to talk about today is for a specific type of individual. An individual who has spent their whole life trying to fit in, but actually they were meant to stand out. They were meant to be magnificent. They were meant to be an underdog. They were meant to be in the bright lights. They were meant to shine. They were supposed to be the special person. They were supposed to be the anomaly that ended up doing the impossible, achieving the impossible, becoming the kind of person who the statistics and all of the evidence following and their past and their upbringing suggests that they should not have become. And so that's really specifically the kind of individual that I'm really aiming today to, because that's who I want to talk about. So I want to begin with a couple of statements. Make of the statements whatever you will. And the first statement that I want to share with you is a quote that was spoken by William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare once said that some men are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. I'm going to repeat it because I don't want you to miss this first statement. The first statement was spoken by William Shakespeare, and William Shakespeare said that some men are born great, some achieve greatness, and others have greatness thrust upon them. The second statement that I want to share with you is that until someone who is not within the system comes along and disrupts it, everything will remain the same. I repeat, the second statement. Until someone who is not within the system comes along and disrupts it, everything will remain the same. Let me just stop here for this and talk a little bit about this. There is a third statement that I want to share with you, but let me talk a little bit about this statement because I think it's so important. You know, we live in a world where there is a lot of things that I think you can agree with me need correcting. Okay, there is stuff, there is racism, there is things to do with children being abused by their foster parents, by their parents. There is animals that are abandoned and are abused by people. There is all kinds of problems in the world. And the issue is, all of those problems, the majority of them, can be overcame. They can be corrected. They can be dealt with by us humans. Here's a problem. The big problem that we have is that the entire world is governed by all of these kinds of systems and all kinds of different things, which I'll talk about in a moment briefly. And the issue is, because we human beings, we like tradition and we like to keep things the same and we like stability and we like continuity. The issue is, nothing changes until somebody comes along and disrupts the system. To the likes of somebody like Steve Jobs, Beyonce, Michael Jackson. In other words, and if you look throughout history, everything was the same until somebody came along like Martin Luther King Jr., like Bob Marley, like Mother Teresa, like Nelson Mandela, like Rosa Parks, and they disrupted the system. What I'm trying to suggest to you is, the person who I want to speak to today is the person who needs to come along and disrupt a system and the systems or an area of life so that certain corrections, certain advancements can be made. But until they come along, the advancements cannot happen. Which perfectly leads me to the last and third statement that I wanted to begin today off with, which is this. Some people keep failing not because they're not talented or are capable of winning, but because they keep using standard strategies, ideologies, philosophies, and other attitudes which are meant for an ordinary life. My God, I'm giving you guys too much already, right? Let me repeat that statement because some of you are not going to get this, but if you are meant to be different, you're going to understand the statement I've just made. Some people keep failing at life not because they're not talented, not because they're not capable of winning. They keep failing because they keep using standard strategies, ideologies, philosophies, and attitudes which were meant for an ordinary life. Let me take this one step further and give you a bonus statement, which I think is also attached to that and is also important. The reason that things aren't working out for you, the reason why you are not winning, the reason why you are not succeeding, the reason why you are not fulfilling your potential is in part because you were meant to be different and you are different, but you keep following the common path. Have you considered that some people like Adele, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, Prince, Bono, Ricky Gervais were all meant to stand out amongst a crowd? Let me repeat that statement. This is big, guys. And this statement is most people are not going to get this because this isn't their destiny. They're not supposed to be an underdog, okay? So most people are going to listen to this and they're not going to get this. This is irrelevant. They're going to listen to it. It might sound interesting, but it isn't for them. But the person who knows deep down that they were supposed to be an underdog will understand exactly what I mean when I say that the reason that things aren't working out for you, the reason why you are not winning, the reason why you are not achieving your potential and you're not reaching the heights that you're capable of reaching is because you were meant to be different. You are different, but you keep following the common path. You keep trying to fit in. You keep trying to be like everybody. You keep trying to dress like everybody. You keep trying to think like everybody. You keep trying to have the same habits as everybody. Right? Your lifestyle wants to mirror what is happening in society right now instead of who you are as a person, right? Have you considered for a minute that the reason that there are, my apologies, have you considered for a moment that there are some people like Adele, right? Like Beyonce, like Michael Jackson, like Prince, who are meant to stand out amongst a crowd? So I hope that you've already seen where I'm going to go with this, right? And I pre-warned you that some of the things that I'm going to talk about today are going to conflict you, right? They're going to contradict what you have been brought up in society to believe. Because there are some people who are listening to me right now who are supposed to be underdogs. They were supposed to stand out from the crowd, but they've been spending their whole life trying to blend in, right? And some of you will understand what I mean when I talk about the fact that, have you ever tried seeing people try to do something, cheat a system, and get away with it, and yet when you do the very same thing, you get caught, right? There are some people who've tried to go and take a quicker route to getting something, and they've actually managed to get away with it. Every time you try to take a quick route, or try to cheat a system, or try to be the bad guy, you always get caught. And some of you, the reason why you keep getting caught is because that life was not meant for you, okay? You know, I believe that one of the really important aspects of becoming a man, of manhood, is figuring out for yourself, where do you belong? And a lot of you guys who are listening to me, if I ask you, where do you belong? You have no idea to the answer to that question, right? You have no idea where you belong. You have no idea where your place is. You have no idea where people get you, where people understand you. If you take somebody like Michael Jackson and you put Michael Jackson amongst people who are ordinary, Michael Jackson will look like a nutter. He will look like nuts. His level of ambition, his level of focus, his level of creativity will be odd. It will be bizarre. But if you take Michael Jackson and you put him amongst people like Bono, you put him amongst people like Prince, you put him amongst people like Jimi Hendrix, right? Are you now seeing that he is now somebody who is elevated, he's found his place, and actually he's a lot more significant. He is special. What I'm saying to you is, some of you are positioned in a way where you're in the wrong place. You keep living a life which is in the wrong place, and you keep looking like shit. You keep doing really badly, right? Let me put it like this. It's like taking a Formula One car and racing the Formula One car on a street. The Formula One car is really fast, but the Formula One car will never be able to, for example, beat a Hummer in the same road. Why? Because in the street, there's going to be things like bumps. There's going to be all kinds of problems that are going to occur on the street, right? And even though the Ferrari or the Formula One car has the potential to go to, 300-400 miles an hour, it cannot reach its potential because it's not aligned properly. It's in the wrong place. I'm suggesting to you that some of you have been living a life where you're misplaced. People don't get you. You keep taking 5 steps forward and then you keep taking 20 back. And you're like, what the hell is going on with me? The reason why is because you keep trying to live the ordinary life. You keep trying to fit in. You keep trying to have the normal lifestyle. You keep trying to do what is popular instead of doing what is authentic to you. Something for you to think about. So let's get into what some of the notes that I wrote down here that I wanted to share with you. And one of the first notes that I wanted to share with you is that, everything in today's society has brought us up to believe that essentially you are either a villain or you are a hero. And if you look at the way marketing is done, you look at the way movies are portrayed, essentially in life, most of us have been led to believe you're either a really good guy, you're a saint, you're a god, you're a demigod, you're a hero, you're somebody who is elevated to amazing heights, or you're the villain. You are the person who's on the dark side of life. You're the criminal, you're the lowlife, you're the druggie. In other words, some of you who are listening to me, whilst there are people in life who indeed do fit those roles, right? You think of people like Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy fits in that role of a criminal, of somebody who is a manipulator, of somebody who will, you think of people like Idi Amin. Idi Amin fits within that category of the dark side, of killing people, of manipulating people. In fact, I wrote down some notes here as to what constitutes as a villain. I wrote down that villains are out for themselves. So they're trying to succeed, not to be of service to other people, not so that they can achieve more resources, that they can achieve influence and power, so that they can distribute it back to the people, so that they can free people who are oppressed, so that they can liberate people, so that they can empower people. They're out to get power so that they can achieve more security for themselves. Villains are willing to do anything to become successful, whether that's stamping on you, whether it's violating a law, whether it's doing something unnatural, whether it's doing something which is illegal. They will do whatever it takes to become successful. A villain is a liar. He's a cheater. A villain typically loses. Villains never win at anything. So if you've ever watched movies, you will know that a villain sometimes actually might win a few of the battles. But the villain always loses the war, right? They always lose at the end of the movie, ultimately. What else did I write here? The villain usually had something bad that happened to them, some wrong that happened to them. In some way they feel as though they were betrayed, they weren't looked after, and what they do is, instead of using that as fuel to become a better person, in other words, if they were brought up in a house where they were abused, instead of using the abuse as fuel to become better human beings, to protect other people from being abused, instead they use it as fuel to turn to the dark side, to hate everybody, to kill everybody, and that's the path which they choose, right? Now let me talk about the hero, and let me go back. And some of you, whilst those aspects of the villain are actually attributes that you've been through, right? You've been perhaps somebody who has in the past manipulated somebody. You have to get what you want. You might perhaps in the past have been somebody who, if you've had a quick way to get ahead, you've taken it, right? Instead of taking the longer route, which was more legitimate, which was more authentic, which was more honest. Some of you, if you had an opportunity to win for yourself versus winning for the team, you've taken yourself. And all of us have aspects of that, of ourselves, which we can look at and we can attribute to being the villain. But now let's look at the hero, because a lot of us, we are portrayed and we are told throughout society and throughout movies and throughout stories that if we're not the hero, then we can't be a success, right? If we are not the epitome of life, if we're not married, if we don't have children, if we don't have the white picket fence, if we're not in a successful job, if we don't have an amazing car, if we don't have an amazing career, if we're not traveling all around the world, then we're not the hero, then we're not successful. And I wrote down some things here which constitute a hero. Let me share them with you. Number one, I wrote down that a hero is usually someone who's naturally talented, right? I think we've been lured into this thing where when we look at people like Adele, Beyonce, we look at people who are like Usain Bolt, all of these individuals, they're overnight successes, right? They just are naturally talented at everything. They're just naturally gifted at everything. In reality, people are rewarded in public for what they've practiced for years in private. Let me repeat that statement. Don't miss it. This is important here now. People are rewarded in public for what they've practiced for years in private. When you see somebody who is an overnight success, 9 times out of 10, their overnight success actually took 20 years. Don't get me wrong, there are phenomenons, there are anomalies, there are people who go viral, right? You think of things like Bitcoin, right? There are these anomalies and they occur. There are some things which are exceptional and are a breakaway from the norm. But that's 1%. The rest of the 9, right? The 9 out of 10 all have to have worked really hard and struggled and done things that they didn't want to do and took a second job and worked in Tesco's to get to where they got to. Let me also share this with you. With the hero, the hero is always winning, right? If you've ever looked at the movie, the hero always in the end always wins. But yesterday I shared on all over my social media that the reality of life is sometimes you lose, okay? Sometimes life is not all about win, 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 win. The reality of life is that sometimes you lose. Sometimes you get married, you put everything into a marriage, the person is honestly your best friend, they're an amazing person, but it doesn't work out. You were raised up in a really bad childhood. Your parents didn't look after you. You have kids. You raise your children all in safety. Your child is driving along, and somebody who is a drink driver crashes into them, and they die. And they're the only child who you've had. Right? And I could go on to this list where I could just keep going. But the reality of life is, guys, life is not all about win, 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 win. Nor is life all about lose, lose, lose. Life is supposed to be a combination of both, as you will understand when I get into more details with the underdog. I wrote down here that the hero is usually good looking. You know, we live in this world of Instagram, of filters, of everything is instant, right? Many of you guys who will look on Instagram and you look all over social media, we have not been shown process. It is one of the key aspects of life that I think is missing. Most of us have not been exposed to process. Most of us have seen that our parents have been married for 20, 30, 40 years, but we did not see what their marriage was like for the first 15. Right? Because we were children and we didn't really know what we were seeing. We didn't really understand relationships. And our parents were almost divorced twice. They went counseling, right? They went marriage counseling. One time, one of them had to move out of the house and go and stay with our grandparents. But you don't remember that. All you remember is the result of them now, 20 years into their marriage, having overcome all of that. You don't remember when they used to argue. Some of you have seen your parents now and they are great citizens, but before they used to be alcoholics. They used to smoke all the time. Some of you guys, before your parents, you know them today, they were lowlifes. They were constantly taking drugs and doing all kinds. But now that they've had you, right, and since they had you, they became model citizens. My point to you is, some of us have not seen the process. And because we've not seen the process, many of us are deluded into thinking that, well, the hero just instantly has this natural talent. They look perfect. They look amazing. And their world is perfect. And that's just the way it is. And they don't mess up. And they don't have insecurities. And they don't have down days. But the reality of life is, both heroes and villains have down days. They have losses in their lives. And I just wanted to share that with you. The last one that I wanted to share with you when it comes to the hero is that most of us believe that the hero is naturally gifted, is naturally resilient. That the hero just knows how to fight. They're just brave. They're just courageous. But the reality of life is that some of us are introverts. Some of us are not confident. Some of us don't know what our purpose is. Some of us don't know what our motivation is. Some of us have loads of trauma that we have to work towards. So we can't be the hero, right? And some of us are not so deep and after revenge that we're the villain. And the issue is, some of us don't know where we fit. Now, I want to share with you something that I think is really interesting. So I've been, over the last kind of year or so, I've been making a lot of notes on a book that I'm due to write, which is about what I call the 5 spheres of life. So in my research of studying life and people, I began to realize that the world seemed to operate on these 5 spheres. Let me give you 2 of them. 2 of them is laws. So the entire world is governed by laws, physical laws, all kinds of laws. So let me give you a perfect example. A perfect example of a law that governs the entire universe is the law of gravity, right? We know that if you go on top of a building, it doesn't matter whether it's in Shanghai, Tokyo, Japan, India, Uganda, Pakistan, Brazil, I'm telling you that if you go on the top of a building and you jump off that building, you will never go up. Now, we could have an argument and you could say, well, Cassim, what if there's a trampoline and blah, blah, blah. But we know that it doesn't matter whether you're man, you're woman, you're gay, you're straight, you're into dubstep, you're into R&B, you like reading, you like walking, trekking. It doesn't matter who you are. If you go on top of a building and you jump off it, you will always go down, right? That's a law. We know that. I know that sounds really simple, but without getting too much into details about this, some of you don't recognize that. Some of you don't get that this world seems to operate by these laws. Now, the other one that the world operates on is roles. The world, everything within society operates by these roles. Whether we're going down to the white blood cells and the red blood cells, there is a role that the white blood cells play, and there's a role that the white and the red blood cells play in your blood system. Right? There is a role in a marriage that the man plays and the woman plays. In football, there is a role that the referee has, and there is a role that the linesmen have. Right? The entire world seems to be governed by these roles. Now, I wanted to share this with you because I've come to understand that many of us are trapped within these roles. Many of us don't recognize that we can actually break free of these roles. Right? And that's the whole point of why I'm writing the book, because I've realized some people genuinely think, well, all I am is a mother. Well, all I am is a criminal. Well, all I am is an introvert. Well, all I am is a shy person. Well, all I am is the person who is into gaming. Well, you're not actually, right? Your role isn't your essence. It isn't who you are at the core. Let me share something with you here that I wrote down that I think is really important. I wrote down here, I was making some notes on essence. Many of us seem to get confused with what we do, with our mistakes, with what we're good at and what we're not good at. But what I think is really important that we really look at, and I encourage you to look at in your life, is your essence. So let me share with you a little bit about what I wrote down with essence. Your essence is your energy. Right? Your essence is anything that stays the same and that is true about you in any situation. My question to you is, what stays true about you? All of these years, even though you've strayed and you've got into loads of drugs, even though you've cheated on multiple girls and played multiple girls, even though you have been the guy who has lied, who has said you're into this but you're not into it, even though you have been living a double life, my question to you is, what has stayed true to you? Because there is something which is true to you. That really is your essence, and that is the center of who you are. And so many of us get convoluted and we get confused, and we basically think that we'll Cass, hold on a minute, yeah, but I am an introvert. No, that's just an aspect of who you are. That is not your essence, right? Because what I can share with you is that it's possible for somebody who's an introvert to also be an extrovert. Well, okay, well, if you, for example, you guys, most of you won't know this, but believe it or not, some of the highest performing individuals are not charismatic individuals, right? Many of you will presume that if somebody is the manager of a flower shop or has several flower shops all over London, then they must be an extrovert. They must be so confident within themselves. They must be charismatic and be great with people. No, actually. A lot of people who own organizations, who are directors, who are CEOs of companies, they're not. They are there not because of their ability to be extroverted or charismatic, but it's to do with their discipline, their competence. They're there because of their ability to do the job, right? And you look at somebody like Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is a highly intelligent individual. Jeff Bezos is the CEO of Amazon, right? He started the company. He is clearly a very intelligent individual. But if you listen and watch some of his videos online, he's not that articulate. He struggles to be able to articulate some of his ideas. He isn't the most good-looking guy. He isn't the most charismatic guy. You wouldn't say he's instantly great with women. That's not who he is. Now, hold on a minute. Does that mean that if he decides to go and do a talk show or goes and appears on a television news channel, does that mean he's not who he is? Of course it doesn't. It just means that he has expanded his view of his essence. In other words, he's left his core here, but he's branched out. Does that make sense what I mean by that? This is very deep stuff that I don't really want to get into, but I just wanted you to think about some of this stuff, because some of you have been stuck in this role. You've been thinking, well, Cassim, I grew up on a council estate. Those are my people. No, they're not. Your people are whoever you are associating yourself with, and whoever you need to help you get to where you want to get to, right? Your people are the individuals. In fact, I once read something that said, you want to surround yourself with people who want the best for the best part of you. Some of you guys who are listening to me, part of the reason why you're not reaching your destiny and you're not reaching your potential and you're not fulfilling what your life is capable of fulfilling is because you are not aligning yourself with the people who want the best for the best part of you. You keep hanging on to people who were with you when you started. But people who were with you when you started are not necessarily the people who want the best part, who want the best for you for the best part of you, right? I'll give you a test. If you always want to know what somebody is like for you and whether they want the best for you, tell them good news and watch what happens. If they're not the first people to say, right, which restaurant shall we go to? Right, when shall we get the tequila? Right, where is our vodka? Right, let's get the beers out. Let's get the champagne out. If they're not the first person to say that, and they're talking about how their day was, or they're talking about how it's probably going to fail, and they're talking about how they did something similar, shut your mouth and walk away. Be with them for that moment, but they don't want for the best part of you. And I just want you to think about this kind of stuff, because this stuff is really, 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 really important. So one of the other things that I wanted to add, which I think is really important, is to become an underdog means that you can no longer play the victim. Okay, and the reason why I say this to you is because, as I said earlier on, many of us have been lured into believing that the role that we have to play is the role that we have been playing all our lives. But we can exchange the role. We can transcend the role that we've been. We can manifest a different version of the role that we've been in. We can go through a metamorphosis, and we can actually expand our vision, our definition of the roles which we've been playing. And one of the roles that we can play in life is that of the underdog. And that role is the role that I want to introduce you to, because some of you are supposed to be an underdog and you didn't even know it. An underdog is an individual who can no longer play the victim, because an underdog is a kind of person who isn't supposed to win. An underdog is an individual who the odds are against. An underdog is an individual, when we look at the statistics, when we look at the paper, when we look at where they started their life, when we look at the way they've been behaving, when we look at their habits, when we look at their attitude, when we look at their philosophies, when we look at their goals, when we look at their motivation, everything in their life says that they're a loser. Everything in their life says they're either going to end up the villain, they're going to end up dead, they're going to end up a person who's going to waste their life. But an underdog transcends that. They beat the statistics. They go ahead and go into a lane that is their own, and they go in and disrupt whatever isn't supposed to be disrupted. In fact, one of the notes that I wrote down here is that an underdog is usually normal. And let me explain to you why an underdog has to be normal. Because anybody, when you start reaching higher levels of success and higher echelons of life, and you start actually gaining some traction and some momentum in your life, what's going to happen is that people who are already successful aren't just going to let you come in and allow to just, and just become successful. Do you honestly believe that if I was let's say somebody who was training to be an Olympian, and I've been training for years, and you've just come along as a person, do you honestly think that as you run through and come through the ranks, that I'm not going to recognize you? Of course I'm going to recognize you. I'm going to be looking out. who is my competition, who is going to oppose me, who has a chance of actually beating me. I am going to be very vigilant of anyone around me. But the thing is, when you have an underdog, everybody doesn't expect anything from an underdog. No one expects anything from an underdog. And that's part of the reason why so many times you hear about people become overnight successes. They just randomly appear. And you're thinking, where the hell did this person come from? The reason they came out of nowhere is because they were practicing in private for years, and because nobody thought anything of them, they haven't really achieved any huge success over, like, they weren't viral individuals. They weren't individuals who were charismatic. They weren't naturally gifted, but they were consistent. But they were constantly changing and evolving and adapting. And that, in turn, is what allowed them to be able to achieve success. One of the other things that I wrote down here, which I think is important, is that when you are an underdog, you are free of rules. You know, earlier on I said to you that the world works on these 5 spheres. One of the 5 spheres that the world operates on is rules. The entire world is governed by rules. Everywhere you go, there's rules about if you are if let's say you're going up to McDonald's and you see people all one behind each other, meaning a line, that you join the back of the line, right? There's rules about if you're driving a car on a motorway and your car starts slowing down or breaks down, there's a rule about it. What do? You turn the car to the left. You turn it off and you park it. What else are you supposed to do? You're supposed to step away and leave your car. Do not sit inside of it, right? There are rules about swearing in front of children. There are rules all over the entire universe. And many people don't realize this. And here's the thing about rules. Rules change as you grow, as the playing field changes. This is really important. Really, really, really important. Because, for example, some of you, it's been a rule that you should always play fair. It's true. You should, when you're younger and you're with young kids, your parents told you that you should always play fair and you should always put other people ahead of yourself. Here's a problem. As you get older, the world doesn't play fair, okay? Because unfortunately, when you're in a school, everything can kind of be controlled and contained, and there are rules and boundaries and all kinds of things. The issue is when you start going out into society and you start going out into the normal universe, the issue is that people don't play fair. People don't play by the same rules. So that means one of the things, for example, that you might be missing is that you're not thinking like the villain. In fact, one of your errors and one of the mistakes that you're making is that you think you're so naive, you think that you're so, oh, yeah, but Cassim, butter wouldn't melt, I'm so innocent, I'm such a good person, you know, Cass, I'm such an introvert, I'm such a kind person that I wouldn't hurt a fly. The issue is, the villains keep defeating you. You know, one of the things that I recently shared on my Instagram is that the only reason why, if you've ever watched the Harry Potter movies, there is a reason why Harry Potter was the only person who could defeat Voldemort. Do you know why? Because Harry Potter was the only one who recognized that he had the capacity for malevolence. He recognized, oh my God, I am a danger. I actually am dangerous to Voldemort. And because he realized that he was dangerous and that he realized that everybody talked about him as being this anomaly, he was the one, he was the boy who lived. There was something different about him. Because he recognized that, it meant and gave him the freedom to be able to do things that other people weren't able to do. For example, one of the things that Harry Potter did is that Harry Potter broke rules all the time. Right? Isn't that, if you've seen the Harry Potter books, Hermione and the other guy, he's all constantly saying to Harry not to break rules, not to go into places you shouldn't go to, not to go and pursue things that you shouldn't do, right? The majority of human civilization is bound by rules. And the reason why they cannot succeed is because they keep following the rules. They keep within the context, the boundaries. And the reason why is because they want an ordinary life, right? They want stability. They want continuity. Here's what I'm suggesting to you. If you want spectacular, if you want extraordinary, if you want to live up to your potential, and you will know if you're not supposed to live the ordinary life. You know it. Deep down, people who are not meant to live an ordinary life know it. They know it. I know it. Let me share with you one of the statements that I wrote down here. I wrote down here that I believe that the underdog knows that no matter how far they stray, that deep down, they were always an underdog. Let me explain this to you. So I've studied a lot of people who were like neo-Nazis, people who are extremists, people who are racist, people who are criminals. And one of the things that I was always curious about is, why did they change? I don't get it. How can you have somebody who is literally a racist, hates black people, hates anyone who is not a pure kind of white? How can you have somebody who's like that and then they change their entire viewpoint? And one of the things that I began to realize as I started studying these individuals is that these individuals really, at the core of who they were, at their essence, were good people. They were anomalies. They were actually people who were good. It's just that life and the way they were brought up and the environment and culture that they were brought up into was one where it was fostered to go to the villain, to go to that side of life. And what I'm saying to you is that some of you have been brought up not in the ideal conditions. Some of you have been brought up to idolize and think that you're going to be the hero. Some of you have been brought up where your life, if we look at it, the pattern shows that really you're going to go to the dark side of life, that you are going to become a villain at some point in your life. And I'm saying to you, some of you don't fit in any of those, right? And actually, you are meant for something higher than that. You are meant to be a hybrid of both of them. You are meant to be an underdog. In fact, if you don't become an underdog, there are things that need correcting in society that you need to go in and shake them up. But because you refuse to follow your destiny, because you just want to be normal, you just want to be liked, you just want to fit in, this generation is going to miss your gift. I learned something in my life which was very important. This is what I learned. I learned that in life, some people, indeed, like Shakespeare said, are naturally going to achieve greatness. They're naturally gifted. We know it. We all know people who are naturally gifted, naturally are really good at certain things. And they know what their destiny is. And they know what their calling and their purpose. And they know what life has in store for them. There are some people who genuinely, we know greatness is thrust upon them. Okay? There are some people who are going to be villains. We just know it, right? There are some people that no matter... I was studying somebody recently, a serial killer, a guy called something Martinez. Oh, God, I can't even remember his name. But there was a serial killer in Los Angeles, a guy who was literally in the 1970s finding young women, and he was just literally strangling them and pulling and then cutting their pieces into parts and then throwing them into a river. And I was studying the beginning of his life, and I was like, how can somebody do this? And as you listen to the people who he grew up with, and you listen to the associations, you just know this boy was always going to end up down this path, right? Because you listen from a young age, his father used to beat him. He used to be kept in a doghouse. He used to be starved, right? His brother, his cousin went to Vietnam, and after coming back from Vietnam, he used to show this guy pictures of him raping women, and then he took pictures of the women that he raped, and he used to tell the boy in very graphic details about exactly what he did and what he did with the people who were dead, right? And you are as you listen to all of this, you're like, well, it's no surprise that he ended up kind of getting this kind of life. But what I'm saying to you is, some of you, even though that may look, if we look at your life and the way your life has been going, even though it may look like your life, you are supposed to be the villain, the reality of life is, at your essence, at your core, actually, you are supposed to be a hybrid of both. Let me take this further, because you guys are not listening to what I'm saying. Did you know, I was recently studying psychopaths. Psychopaths are very fascinating people. And I discovered that psychopaths actually have the same characteristics and the same traits as pilots, as engineers, as people who go to war. In other words, what I discovered was that in order to live dangerously, in order to be able to become a detective and catch serial killers and catch individuals who are criminals, you have to have the ability to think like the criminal, right? You can't catch a villain unless you can in some way conceptualize their motive, what they're going to do next, why they were doing it, what their pattern is. You can't catch somebody if you can't think like them. This is, again, going back to Harry Potter. The reason why Harry was able to defeat Voldemort is because Harry had a part of Voldemort living in him. He could think like Voldemort thought, right? He could strategize him. Right? He could think ahead and say, oh, I think Voldemort is going to do this or he's going to make that move. Harry and everybody around him, who were all talented, who were all gifted, even, God damn it, not Hagrid. You know who I'm talking about in the Harry Potter. In the Harry Potter, the professor. Even though the professor had a wand which could defeat Voldemort, he couldn't do it. Why? Because he couldn't outthink Voldemort, right? It was Harry. Harry had a combination of both being brought up with his amazing parents and having a dark side to him, that he was a hybrid of both, which allowed him to do things that other people couldn't do. I'm saying to some of you that the pain that you've been through, the betrayal that you've been through, the fact that you haven't fitted into society is exactly what makes you unique. Study any individual who you see that has achieved great things in their life, and I guarantee you they will be polar opposites. There will be a dark side of them, and there will also be this amazing light to them. Right? There is a saying that goes something on the lines of, there's a madness to genius, right? Something on those lines. Don't quote me on exactly that, but there is an element you have. Let me put it another way. Ordinariness does not leave room for creativity. Because in order to think, in fact, let me go a bit further on this, because one of the notes that I wrote down here is that underdogs have the ability to be creative, as they don't have to follow the same rules and they don't have to follow the same path as everybody else. Some of you guys, the thing that's going to allow you to be successful and the thing that's going to allow you to do things that are impossible is the fact that you're not bound by rules. You can think outside of the box. You can do things. See, nobody expects anything from you anyway, right? If you are brought up in a family where you're destined, earlier on I said that some people are born great, some people have greatness thrust upon them, and some people achieve greatness. Some people are born into a house where they have no choice but to succeed. You think of somebody like Donald Trump. Donald Trump comes from an era where he had no choice but to succeed. There is no way Donald Trump's parents could allow him not to become successful. When you come from the bottom, when your life has been shit, when you come from nothing, right? When you have felt like you are nothing, when you felt like you're not enough, when you felt like you don't matter, like nobody gets you, like nobody understands you, you have a freedom that most people don't have. Nobody expects shit from you. Like, I don't know what other way you want me to put this. No one expects anything from you. I talk to leaders all the time, and one of the things that I talk to leaders about is that in the universe, in the world, there are essentially two things that everybody expects from human beings. Number one is pay your taxes, okay? No matter where you go around the world, everybody believes that you should pay your taxes. It doesn't matter whether you're poor or you're whether somebody who is a billionaire. Everyone still believes that everyone should pay their taxes. Let's not get into the convoluted of how much they should be paying. On a general umbrella rule, we all believe that everyone should pay their taxes. The second thing is that everybody expects that everybody should go out there and actually try to not kill somebody or stop anybody else getting what they want, right? In other words, we all believe you can do whatever you want, just and pursue whatever you want and have whatever you want. Just don't stop me from getting what I want, and don't take my life in the pursuit to get what you want. Right? And if you actually look at all the conflict in the world, if you go to the courts and you look at all the cases that essentially that they're there, in one way or another, is to do with either somebody trying to take somebody's life to get what they want, right? Or the person in some way has lied, cheated, manipulated this a system to get some kind of money or some kind of success. Most of the problems arise around those two issues in the courts. And above that, nobody else expects anything above that, right? And so for you, your ability to be able to be a normal person, to have no expectations of you, gives you a freedom that you cannot even comprehend, that you cannot even imagine. The other thing that I wrote down here is that the crowd will forget about the champion to support an underdog. Have you ever watched like athletics or like a race, and you've got somebody who is naturally gifted, who is consistent, who has always won, but there seems to be an anomaly, somebody who is different, somebody who is odd, somebody who is all of a sudden has been losing the whole race, but something has happened along the way, and now they've come to the front. They're starting to make their way to the front of the race, even though they were not supposed to win. Do you know that most of us, even though we know that the champion or the person who's been the most consistent should win that race, we will forget about that person and we will instead root for the underdog? I'm saying to you that in your life, if you dare to actually stand out, if you dare to take the uncommon path, the rest of us will root for you. In fact, let me take this a step further. People who hate you will respect you for the fact that you've gone down the uncommon route. I talk to people all the time and I share with them that there's two ways. Well, there's actually several ways in which you gain respect from other men. But the two most common ways you get respect from other men, because I know most men we want respect, is number one, competence, okay? Competence. We respect guys who are competent, who, in other words, they're really disciplined at something, and as a result, they have success at it, right? And in order to to actually have success at something, you have to be good. You have to be consistent over a long time. The second way that you get success from other men, that you get respect from other men, is through resilience, right? It's through your ability to overcome challenges. That's why we respect soldiers. Why? Because we respect them because they're courageous. They do things that we wouldn't usually want to do. They put their lives on the line. They have to go through this crazy training. They have to be away from their family. We respect people because of that. I'm saying to you that if you go and pursue this route where you don't fit in, but you still stay grounded and you stay within your essence and you're still a good person and you still strive to achieve, your enemies will actually have more respect for you. They may not like you, but they will respect you for your ability to be resilient. Let me take this further. Becoming an underdog really isn't about becoming a winner. Becoming an underdog at its core is really about character. If you find people who are underdogs, individuals who achieve things that they really should not have achieved, many of them are in those positions because, in part, they had to do it. I find that underdog have this rhetoric where they say things like, somebody had to do something about this. I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't live my life. I couldn't waste my life. I had... Cassim, I don't know why. The evidence was against me. I didn't have the information, but I knew I had to start that business. I knew I had to go for that opportunity. I knew I had to marry that girl. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean that you knew? Well, how do I measure that? And they're like, well, I don't know, Cass. I just knew that I had to marry her. Well, what does that mean? Tell me what that means. They're like, I don't know. I just knew I had to marry. Well, tell me why you started the business. How did you know? The fact that you'd never started a business, no one you knew had a business, you don't have a history of business, you didn't go and study business at university, you had no money, you had no resources. Tell me why you decided to start the business. Well, I don't know, Cass. I felt like I had to start the business. But how did you know? Tell me the evidence that you have. And I don't know. That's just what felt right. I'm saying to some of you that your essence, what your leaning, your uniqueness, your instincts are what are going to allow you to do some of the most remarkable things if you will lean into them, if you will get them, right? And you will get that it's not about you winning. It is about you completing. It's about you becoming who you are. And that is what people will respect, your character, your ability not to give up. Because it isn't about revenge. It isn't about proving anything to anyone. It isn't trying to prove that you're a winner. It's just about you being you, about living up to your potential, about doing what you think is right. We respect that as people. The last thing that I want to share with you today is this statement. The underdog shows us that we too have what it takes. You know, one of the big life lessons that I have learned in my life is that life isn't really about us. And I think the more mature you become in your thinking, the more that you refine your philosophy, the more that you live life and experience life and you spend time on this planet, the more you begin to get this lesson that life isn't really about you. You know, when you look at the difference between a child and somebody who is wise, one of the big differences is that a child is all about them. What can I have? Why can't I have it? When can I have it? Why are you not giving it to me? It's all about them. Their entire world revolves around them. But when you meet somebody who is wise, somebody who is successful, somebody who has a great life, one of the things that you realize is that person is always asking, how can I serve you? How can I help you? How can I improve your life? In fact, you've heard me talk about greatness a lot today, and one of the definitions of greatness is that greatness, as Zig Ziglar said that if you will help enough people get what they want, you can have whatever you want. Let me give it to you how Martin Luther King Jr. put it. Martin Luther King Jr. said that not everybody can be famous, but everybody can achieve greatness, because greatness is not determined by how famous you are. Greatness is determined by how much service you give to others. Let me give it to you biblically. Biblically, it is put like this. A question was asked, how can we achieve great power, great influence, great wealth, great abundance in our lives? And biblically is said that find a way to serve the many, for service to many will lead to greatness. When you start asking yourself, how can I serve people? How can I be of service? How can I help you? How can I use what I've been through as fuel, as an engine, as power to go on and live a remarkable life? Great things begin to happen in your life. And when you combine that with the fact that you are an underdog and you're free to go anywhere and roam anywhere, become who you want to become, and expand any definition that you wish, it allows you to be able to become who you need to become. It allows you to become a writer if you need to become a writer to help the people you need. It allows you to go into business if business is a vehicle that you're going to use in order to get the power, the influence, the resources that you need to be able to serve the people who you want to serve. And what I'm saying to you guys is that the fact that you become who you are meant to become will inspire other people to become more of who they're capable of becoming. There is a famous poem by a woman called Marianne Williamson which says, that you playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. As you let your own light shine, you unconsciously give other people permission to do the same as they are liberated from their fears. As you become an underdog, as you pursue greatness, as you decide for yourself who you want to become, how you want to live, how you want to show up on your time on this planet, you will unconsciously give people around you permission to be able to do the same. They too will believe that they can achieve greatness. They too will believe that, oh, hold on a minute. So I don't have to be who I've always been. Oh, I'm not trapped within the role that I've been playing. I wonder if we're ever going to see you before you die. Let me finish today's notes on this topic. You know, I always used to believe that the wealthiest place on this planet was perhaps the gold mines of South America. But I discovered that I was wrong. Then there was the Iraq War, and I thought, you know what, it's probably the oil fields of Iraq or Iran. Again, I discovered I was wrong. Then I thought, you know what, the wealthiest place on this planet, I watched a film called Blood Diamond, and I thought it's probably those diamond mines of South Africa. And again, I discovered that I was wrong. I discovered that the wealthiest place on this planet is down the road from you, and you probably didn't even know it. It's a graveyard. Because in the graveyard, you'll find dreams, goals, ambitions, companies, solutions to problems that people never went after, that they never exercised in their lives. Let me tell you what all of that wealth in the graveyard is. The word that it is potential. What makes the graveyard the wealthiest place is potential. Potential is what you could do, but you haven't done yet. My God, I don't even want to get into potential. But potential is what many of you have, but because you've been trapped in these roles of thinking I either have to be the hero or I have to be the villain, you have no room for creativity. You have no room to expand your life, your definition, your roles, your attributes, your way of your lifestyle, your living, your dreams, your goals. There is no room. You've been fixed into this box that you don't occupy. And I'm saying to you that some of you are actually meant to be underdogs. You are meant to break free. You are supposed to be the lion that has been released from the cage. And I dare you to try to break free, right? There is a reason why if a lion that has been raised in captivity, there is a reason why they still lock the gates. Okay? If a lion that has been raised in captivity and has been raised in a zoo and has had no access to other wild lions, why do they lock the zoo? Why do they lock the doors to it if it's so cute and so nice? Because at its essence, at its core, that lion is still dangerous. I'm saying to you that some of you are dangerous and you haven't even known it. And I'm not talking about dangerous as in you're going to go and kill people. I'm talking about dangerous as in you have great gifts, great resources that you can acquire. You have great ideologies, great philosophies. You have the capacity to live a great life, a life that is beyond even your wildest dreams, if you will actually try to break free of the cages that have been bounding you within the roles that you've been playing. Okay, so that finishes today off and the notes that I wanted to share with you. I don't know whether it's been useful for you. I don't know whether you've had any utility in it. As I told you at the beginning of it, I was going to tell you things that were going to contradict much of what you believe. And as I said at the beginning, I said to you, come with it with an open mind. There are some things that I shared with you that probably weren't really of interest. They weren't for you. And there's going to be many people who are going to listen to this, and this isn't for them because that wasn't the path that they were supposed to go down. But there are some people who know exactly what I've just talked about. Your whole life you've been trying to fit in, but you can't fit in. Your whole life you keep doing stuff and you can't get away with it, and yet other people do the same thing and they get away with it. You keep trying to live this ordinary life when you're really supposed to stand out amongst the crowd. And I just encourage you to stand out. Embrace who you are. Become who you was meant to become, right? And all of the magic of life lies on the other side of you embracing who you're capable of becoming and manifesting and expanding the version of who you are. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel Cassimotive on YouTube if you want more of this stuff. And I will see you very soon. Bye for now.